Hello, everyone. It's Jennifer Tomlinson, and welcome to another episode of the Black Woman Be Well podcast. It's been a minute, y'all, and I'm sorry. The last episode you heard was a while ago, and you know that we are dealing with COVID and being on lockdown. I'm not in the studio. The studio is closed indefinitely, so I'm getting creative in ways to still bring you content. I hope you've enjoyed the previous episodes in my living room from my iPhone or from my webcam. But today I'm really, really lucky to be recording with help from my tribe. So I want to give a big shout out to my boy Taroy. Go ahead and follow him at Average Joe. Troy, we're gonna put you on air real quick. What's your stuff again? The Average Joe Media. Hit my boy up. He is loaning us his mobile podcast studio, and I appreciate you, brother, because people need content, and I didn't know how to do it, and you helped me out. He has a mobile business, but I couldn't even bring it to my own house because I got some construction going on. So I want to give a shout out to my boy John Q. You've heard him on the show before. We're actually recording in his house. So thank you to my tribe for allowing this to happen. And I appreciate you guys for sticking with us, even though we have not been consistent since March. But today is a really cool episode. I'm really happy about the guest I have with me because the situation we are in right now in 2020 has been political. And a lot of social justice work going on with the things that have been happening during the pandemic. And so I have a wonderful woman, and honestly, she's a thought partner, a community partner. I want to introduce Kristin Fulwylie Thomas, who is the managing director for Equal Ground. Welcome, Kristen.
Yes, thank you.
I'm happy you're here to speak to the people.
I am too. Thank you for having me.
So for those that are listening, you heard me say Equal Ground. It is a nonprofit organization. And Kristen, will you tell the people what is Equal Ground and what do you do there?
Yes. So Equal Ground, we started Equal Ground in May of 2019. So we are a Black-led organization, community-centered organization, engaging Black voters along the I-4 corridor. So we do work in Pinellas, Orange County, Volusia, and Seminole County. We found that there was a need for a Black-led organization to do this work. Oftentimes in the state of Florida, you'll find that there are organizations that are Black-labored but have all-white led staff. And so there was a need to have a Black organization to be able to engage, educate, empower, turn out Black voters, and make sure that we are educated and know how to turn out for this election and just elections to come. So we started like I said, in 2019. This year we launched a voter registration program. Of course, due to COVID, which I'm sure we'll get into, we had to pivot and make some shifts. But this year our main focus was to make sure that Black voters were engaged and educated about this election. So our organization, we made over 300,000 calls to Black voters. We knocked on more than 50,000 doors.
Come through.
Yes. There's more. We sent over 200,000 text messages. And our goal was just to make sure that, Black folks had a plan to vote. So due to the pandemic, we wanted to, people needed to think early. How are you going to vote? Are you going to go early? Are you going to vote by mail? Are you going to go election day? If you're going to go election day, what time are you going? How are you going to get there? Who's going to take you? Who are you going with? And so we wanted to make sure that people, had a plan to vote. Our organization also launched for the first time our a Black leaders training programs called Take the Lead. So what we did was we trained over 70 Black leaders in the state to make sure that they were equipped, whether you wanted to run for office, whether you wanted to work on a campaign, that you had an understanding of the political landscape here in the state of Florida. How to build power, what building a community, what does it take to run a campaign? What does it take to run for office? We know that there is almost like a shortage of campaign managers and senior Black senior staff. in the state of Florida. And so we want to really help to combat that issue. And so we were able to train over 70 Black leaders here in the state and looking to expand that next year. One of the other things that we took the lead on was Souls to the Polls. For those who don't know about Souls to the Polls, it is a large event with elected officials, community partners, and faith leaders to turn out Black voters across the state. So oftentimes there will be some sort of event or a gospel artist or leaders will come out. There will be food, there will be music. It will be really a big event. And then it's close to an early voting site, so people can either take the bus or walk across the street and go vote. And so our organization was able to take the lead on that and work with an amazing partners, amazing faith leaders across the state. And we expanded our program that was originally supposed to be for 11 counties and expanded it to 22 counties across the state. And we had to get a little creative in some of them. And some of them were park and praises, where you pulled up in your car, you got the honk for Jesus, and you went to go vote or drop off your vote by mail ballot. And so it was just a really, really great experience. And I could say that very proud of the work we did in basically our first year.
All right. So the summary you gave, and it's just packed full of just stuff y'all did, which is amazing. And you said what year was the organization founded?
2019. So last year.
That is insane for only a year's worth of work. It is. I want to go back to something you said that seemed very powerful to me. You said that, this organization, what's really been profound about it is that it's not just Black labor helping move the work forward, but it's actually Black-led. Can you tell me about the founder a little bit?
Yes. So our founder, who is not only a mentor, but a good friend of mine, Jasmine Bernie Clark, she is our consulting director and founder of the organization. We have been talking about doing something like this for a really, really long time, but she comes with extensive background in managing campaigns, fundraising, building political power. She is huge on putting other Black leaders on and giving, helping with giving them experience and things like that. And so it was just time. The stars aligned. God made a way, opened up doors. Amen. And we were able to, she was able to start this. We were able to get this thing off the ground.
So let me just say so a little context for those that don't know is that previously organizations that were centered around, voting awareness and getting people to vote have usually been white-led, is what you're saying,
for the most part. And of course we have our organizations like, the NAACP and things like that have done a great job around voter education and voter registration. But when it comes to community-centered organizations, yes, they have been white leaders at the table making the decisions, and that's not the case here.
And I need my list. I hope my listeners were paying attention, because what I think is the powerful thing here that we need to acknowledge is just not Black-led. She is a black woman. Come through.
And I will say that 70 to 80% of our leadership staff were Black women.
Wow.
Yeah. We were extremely intentional about hiring Black leaders, engaging and really empowering Black leaders. So even from myself as the managing director all the way down to our canvassers, to our quality control coordinators, to our regionals, we were very intentional about the training and making sure that this wasn't just a paycheck for an election cycle, but they were empowered to be able to do their job well.
I don't think people will understand the historical significance of organizations like this. When you think about the civil rights movement, historically was the labor and the work and the grassroots efforts were done by Black women, but the leadership had always been male, and that is something the Black community has to wrestle with, that we function very systemically in a patriarchal system, even within our own community, right? So the power in having our community-based organization, not only the work being done by Black women, and and obviously you have male staff as well, but the leadership also being Black female, I think that is just so powerful and so significant. based on our historical work in the past, when it comes to civil rights work.
Oh, yes. It was, sometimes we were just in the office and we just sat there like, this is really happening.
It's powerful.
This is actually happening.
Yeah.
This is really powerful. And we're actually doing a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and it came with a lot of challenges. And
well, let's talk about that for a little bit. Right. What was the experience like pre-election? Because I can only imagine, what's the right word, incentive, or there must have been, just in your organization, the commission to really want to make sure people executed their right to vote. So what was it like pre-election? What were some of the things you guys had to do, or the experience like, the things you guys thought about?
Yeah, so, I mean, coming into this, I would say pre-pandemic, of course, there's a need. We have wanted to make sure that we turned Black voters out, that we increased voter registration, and so really just excited about being able to do that work, being able to hire staff. And like I said, when we first started, we focused on the census and we focused on voter registration. So building, writing proposals, and all of those things, and then boom, a whole pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And that completely, and I know it wasn't just our organization or just this industry, it was other campaigns. Right. It was every industry. Nobody knew what to do.
Because so much of your work is on the floor,
yes.
Right?
So you win campaigns by talking to people face to face, by having either a candidate in a room doing smaller house parties, by having rallies, by having real conversations, real dialogue face to face. It's the field programs that legit win campaigns, or give you the ability to be able to do real education. And so when the pandemic hit, we had to make a huge pivot, and nobody knew in this political space what that looked like. And so it was a challenge, because we had to take a step back and say, okay, first of all, will funding still be around? Because we got funding for, you get funding for a specific program. Yeah. And then now we are saying we cannot do that program. What does that look like? And then, being at this level, you have to think about, do we have to lay staff off? Can we even do this work? Can we even do this work and be effective? And so we had to make a pivot in the beginning. As we were figuring things out, we were blessed. Blessed is not, I just can't express how blessed we were to be able to keep our staff on. And we pivoted, and we first started to help with Corona resources. So we were able just to make phone calls, and we pivoted to a whole phone bank program, and just was like, okay, here are the resources that our elected officials are doing in your communities and the counties we serve. And Jasmine and I had to have some real conversations and figure out, what does that look like? And so we pivoted to a whole virtual program where we had to make calls and send text messages. And instead of going door to door to help people make a plan to vote, we had to call them and help them make a plan to vote. So it was not just shifting our program, but also a lot of our staff, this was their first time, having to work from home. So we had to help people make that transition that now you got to work from home. These are the hours. Now, they might have kids who are doing at-home learning. And so it was a lot. Yeah. But we had to make those, transitions. And so that was a part of the challenge on how
And it sounds like y'all got really creative. Even, kind of switching gears and helping people get access to Corona resources, or COVID resources. Like some of the things you mentioned with like the Souls to the Polls work and coming by and honking your horn and dropping off your ballot. Like, I'm sure you guys it just sounded like y'all had to get really creative.
We had to get real creative. If we wanted to have a program, we had to get really creative to the point where we had we worked with another partner and had an online portal where you can go to equalgrounds.vote and you can register to vote online. You could request a vote by mail ballot. You can find information about when it became available, about early voting locations and where you go to vote at your precinct. And we just had to figure out how to do it because just because COVID happened, the election didn't stop. Right. And the need for this work didn't stop. And so we had to figure out what to do.
So, something you said that you guys work on too that I just thought was fascinating because I didn't know you guys did this, that you were helping Black leaders in the state. And this is like a leadership program, you're saying, to help Black leaders get access to like campaign management positions, or just be prepared to be a part of the process in that way. And then we're talking about this Black female leadership thing. And so those two things are making me think about, because now we're talking post-election. Like, you're telling me all the things you did before, but it's post-election. I know some people don't think, the election didn't happen or we still waiting, but it's done. It is what it is. All right. And so, knowing that we now have a Black woman as a VP, and based on the things that that you shared, that I think are just so powerful. What are your thoughts? Like, how do you feel? What are your thoughts about the fact that Kamala is our VP, and how does this impact our culture?
I think it's dope. If I can just be, I just think it's dope. I mean, there's memes, and I'm sure I'm sounding repetitive, but I think it's really amazing just to see that there is a Black woman in this at this level that looks like me, that comes from that, what is an HBCU grad, she would be going to brunch just like me and my friends would be going to brunch. And so I just think that represents so much, especially just because so much of the Democratic electorate is Black women. And so I think that she just sets it just makes a statement for not only the places and the rooms that Black women can be in, but now I think parties are going to need to take a better look at how we treat Black women when it comes to our votes. Yeah. And so I just think it's amazing, and I'm really excited to see the work that she is going to do. But I think it just represents so much, because we've had people like, Shirley Chisholm and all of these Black women that have come before, that I don't think either party was ready to handle a fierce Black woman at that level. And to be honest, I don't think we're ready now, but we're here. So it's like, what you gonna do? And one of the things that she excelled in, or where she got a lot of national attention, was how she handled a lot of, Senate hearings, and just her composure and just being straight to the point. Even when she was running for president, in the debates herself, I don't think people were expecting it, but I'm here for all
I
of
agree.
it.
I'm here for it too. And I have the same sentiments you have in terms of like what she just represents. And I think, she's obviously credentialed, and I think she's very intelligent. But I think that people, because of her, her elected, being elected as VP, like, to me, it feels like, all right, maybe people can finally now take us seriously and take our voice seriously. And she doesn't come without controversy. No, we need to clarify that too, right? Because, and I want to say this in this way. I think that I'm so happy that it's there, and what it can do for us as a nation, and just her representing the Black female voice, period. But also, I know I'm all about education. We all need to hold all of our politicians accountable.
At every level.
No one gets a pass. And so, if you followed her political history, and you might have been uneasy about some of her decisions, hold her accountable. But I just feel like at the same time, I say the same thing. Check me. You know what I'm saying? If you need to check me and what I do, or the things that I've done so I can learn and do better, please do that and hold me accountable. Yep. But let's not lose sight of what this means, because I never thought I would have lived to see a day where a Black woman, I just never thought, it was just never would happen.
Not a woman.
We had Barack, and then you were like, all right, so the next one is a white woman.
Definitely.
Because that's historically what's happened, right? There's no way a Black woman would be vice president of anything. Nope. So,
and I just think it means so much. And I'm glad you brought up the issues that people had, and that's fine, have them, but this moment is bigger, and let's hold her accountable and just make sure that they do what needs to be done for women, for Black Americans, for really for everyone. So I love to see it. But I know that, we always say November 3rd was the election. November 4th is when the work actually begins. And so we can't just be cool with, oh, my VP's black. That's dope. And I'm here and I support it and I'm gonna have all the shirts and I'm gonna do all the things. But at the end of the day, just like her, just like our, all of our elected officials from, school board all the way up to president, we have a lot of work,
because this is the democracy. It's our job. If they're going to represent us, make sure they know what they're representing. So our job doesn't stop just because we have somebody elected. Like we still have work to do as a people so that they understand clearly what we need and what we're asking for. I love that. And so that makes me think about this other thing. Maybe you can help inform, because, a lot of us want to be not necessarily political, but politically informed. Like we want to know what policies or things we should be paying attention to. But sometimes it's really hard for us to really get into it. Like, how do you research? When I think back on my child, being a child in college, just not even knowing where to start, like what book to read or who tells you, how to get into the process or what's important to think about. So can you share with our listeners who might be interested in being more aware of our politics? Are there any policies that, and let's focus on Black women, are there any policies that Black women should currently be paying attention to specifically so that we can hold our representatives accountable?
Yeah, so let's start, I would say let's start at the federal level. So, of course, we have health care, and we know that that is being challenged at every level. And we know that now that President-elect Biden will take place in January, that, wanting to save the Affordable Care Act is going to be a major priority for him. And so I think just making sure that women and we have access to health care. One thing that was talked about during the Democratic debates was making sure that we give funding and resources to hospitals and staff to make sure that we lower the Black death rate when Black women are given birth. And so we know how high that is. We know that there's issues. We know that Black women are not taken seriously in the hospital rooms because, we're just strong and they don't take our pain seriously. And that is something that Kamala talked about during the trail. Actually, a lot of candidates talked about. And so I think that that's something major that we need to make sure that we are holding them accountable and funding and actual money goes into that.
Okay, so for my listeners, if you remember, this episode started on the first 3 episodes. We talked about my experience with having PCOS, and I wanted you to make sure you understood how to advocate for yourself through the medical system. And we have my sister Kristen here telling us that we need to also be keeping an eye out on our healthcare policies that are coming down the pipeline. So this is full circle, y'all. If y'all are listening, please take note of that. Learn to be an advocate for yourself, because if you don't, I don't want to say that you could die, but literally you could die.
Lives are at stake.
Lives are at stake. So advocate for yourself, and let's be politically aware of the policies coming down the pipeline. What else do you have for us, Kristen?
I would say there is a policy about ending violence against women. So that is huge, making sure that, you expand the safety net for survivors, empowering, protecting young people. Confronting online harassment is a really huge thing. And so that is coming in the pipeline. Of course, income gap is huge. We already know that Black women, 63%, Black women are paid just 63% to every dollar of white men. And so we know that is something that we need to really pay attention to. And we have a lot of work to do there.
Yes.
It's crazy that you hear these things and then you think, okay, that's not real. And so I actually had a position, came in with another man Same level. Actually, I had higher credentials because I had a master's degree, and I literally made $4,000 less than what he made annually. And I just thought that was crazy. We're doing the same job. Came in at the same level. I have more credentials, and you're making more. We could have a
whole episode on economics, because there's this other element of just Black people, not just women, Black people not knowing that they're poor. There's that whole thing, like the poverty line, like if you don't make a certain amount, you're technically poor. And we're not talking, because our image of poor is, oh, I'm homeless on the street. No, you could be paycheck to paycheck poor. So if you have a false conception of I'm middle class when you're not, you would never think to say, well, how much am I actually making in comparison to my counterparts? We also have a society here that we do not talk about money. That's an American thing. It's hyper sensitive in the Caribbean too. You don't talk about money in the household. You don't talk about it to nobody. So if you don't talk about money, you'll never know that Joe Schmo in the same position is making a certain amount, and you should be making the same amount, because we don't talk about money. There's like this whole thing that we have to understand how much economics and socioeconomics really makes up our identity when we talk about intersectionality. You are a Black woman, and also what are you socioeconomically? And that's going to empower you to be able to actually be able to know to ask for more,
and to your point. So yes, we need to hold our elected officials accountable. One thing that I did, partnered with some other Black women, was a salary negotiation workshop.
Okay.
Black women do not ask for more money.
We don't.
Actually, we get a salary and we said we could pay our rent, and that's it. We don't advocate for more money. We don't advocate for
you be so happy. You be so happy for the breadcrumbs, and you don't realize there's a whole buffet. That's the part that I'm like, that it shook me. Like there's like a whole 3-course meal.
Yep.
Because you're grateful for anything,
Yep. And so we need to be, to your point of advocacy, we need to be better advocates in all areas of our lives. And one of them is making sure that we are confident in our work. Oftentimes we come in early, leave later, manage projects, be able to juggle all of these things, and don't ask for either more money, more paid time off, being able to work from home, the flexibility to do whatever. And so we just need to be advocates in that area too. And that's something that as a Black woman, even I'm learning.
Same.
So
I just got there.
Yeah. So,
so actually, sisters, don't feel like you're alone. We're all dealing with it. We all have imposter syndrome. That's a whole nother episode, girl.
It didn't take for me to work for a Black woman, honestly, to feel like, oh, I'm actually getting paid pretty decently. Thank you. Like, it's a lot. But yeah, so I would say those are some of the top things to look for. I would say here in the state of Florida, we have a lot of work to do. So one of the...
y'all don't laugh at Florida, okay? But we do have some work to do.
We have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to put my partisan hat on. We lost a lot in the state of Florida on Election Day. We lost... additional seats in the House. I think it was 3, and then we lost a seat in the Senate. So Republicans are dominating the House, the Senate, and of course they have the governors. And recently, if we look at the response to the pandemic, we think about unemployment. Governor DeSantis put out a policy this fall, Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act. So I'm not sure if anyone was able to read it, but basically it, let me see if I can just give you a couple of highlights. I mean, it is so bad. If that's the
word you want to use.
Right.
I mean,
it's so bad. I know that they're expanding no bond and bail until your first appearance, prohibits state grants, or aid to any local government that slashes budget for law enforcement, striking a law enforcement officer during a violent or disorderly assembly equals 6 months mandatory minimal jail sentence. I mean, they're extending these sentences for. It's a war on protesters.
I feel like it's strategic. It's a strategic policy, like you said, a war on protesters. I think it's an answer to people asking for defunding, like that. Well, if that's what you're asking for, this is, as a state of Florida, this is our response to that. And I think it's an ability to really what's the word? allow vigilantism against protesters. I mean, that's what this is.
But wait, there's more. So then he recently put out that he wanted to expand Stand Your Ground.
Yes.
So we all know Stand Your Ground was what acquitted George Zimmerman during the Trayvon Martin trial. So it's a anti-mob legislation, and so it would expand the Stand Your Ground law and would allow armed citizens to shoot a suspected looter or anyone engaged in criminal activity that disrupts a business. So that's basically giving, to your point, random people the ability to authority.
Yes. It's crazy.
And so when I say we lost the state of Florida, these are the type of things that we're going to see legislative session. So legislative session starts March of 2021. And these are the things that are going to be discussed among, you know, things like redistricting, things like unemployment, which we know was a complete disaster. Mm-hmm. And so there is just so much at stake at a, local, state and federal level that we just need to pay attention to. But Florida hit a huge loss because when you think of these are the type of legislations that deeply impact the Black and brown communities, and then we don't have the representation with our elected officials in Tallahassee, what do you think is going to get passed? Right. I'm actually scared.
And historically, this is something that we've struggled with, like being, if we showed up to vote for presidential candidates, we just, for whatever reason on the rest of the ballot, just did not.
So down the ballot, it didn't happen this year. People either went in specifically for the presidential election, and then it's like they completely.
I mean, how much of this really is, again, political ignorance? Like, people probably didn't even know. I think a part of it really is like people like, there's more to this. There's a back, and as much as your organization and other organizations try to give sample ballots ahead of time, and I know you're a bipartisan organization, so you just share the policies ahead of time to get people. It still is not infiltrating the whole entire state in a way for people to be able to be prepared when they are about to vote, to also think about their representatives, because that's where the change happens.
Directly impacting your everyday lives is what I say happens here. There's a lot of work that needs to be done during off-election cycles, and I'm so blessed to be able to be a part of this journey of equal ground, to be able to make that a focus of 2021, where we can educate not just on just the election process. So there's two tiers of importance here. You have folks just understanding what politicians do. When I used to work for a state representative, you would have people call the office and they wanted to talk about trash. And it's like, well, that doesn't pertain to this office. Let me get you over to the right office. So just understanding what's the role of your city commissioner compared to your state representative, compared to your, your mayor, your
governor,
all of these different roles.
It's really education.
It's a lot of education. And then we have a lot of education to do about just how to vote and what does that look like. Yeah. So we know that due to the pandemic, vote by mail was a huge thing this year, but there was so much misinformation out there about vote by mail. Is it safe? Historically, Black and brown voters, they don't trust vote by mail ballots for a number of reasons. It's also Black and brown voters are high. They have a higher rejection rate as well. So that means that they either completed their ballot, mailed it back in, didn't sign it, or their signature doesn't match. So your signature on your ballot has to match the signature that the state has on file for you. So we had to, again, get creative in this world and really just do a lot of education when it came down to hey, sign the back of your ballot when you mail it in. Track it. Mail it 14 days before you're actually supposed to mail it so it gets there on time. It has to be there, on election day by 7 p.m. to count. So there's a lot of education when it has to do just how do you vote, what's the safest way to vote, and things like that. So we have so much work to do. It's a little overwhelming, but it's exciting at the same time. But I think we really need to focus on, during election season, you're getting so much information from all of these campaigns. You're getting calls, you're getting text messages. Some people are knocking on your doors.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But when there's
you be like, I know who I'm going to vote for the president. I don't need it. Yeah.
Right. And then to top it off, there were amendments on the ballot. Yeah. Thankfully, one thing Florida did get right was passing the minimum wage amendment, which over the next 6 years, the minimum wage will be raised to $15.
And that's, I think everybody knew. Like, if you were shocked to see it and you just scanned it real quick, you saw the word minimum wage and you was like, oh, And I also think it's a bipartisan issue. Like, I think on both sides in Florida, genuinely, people have an interest in that topic.
They do. Yeah, they do.
So
that was a win. That was a win for Florida.
So the work is not over for y'all. Y'all have a lot more education to do. And what I love what you're kind of sharing with us is your work isn't done. It's not just about election education. You're going to spend the next couple of years engaging with the community to just get them politically aware. And I think that's a lesson for those that are not doing what you're doing, that are just not passively. Those are just the receiving end. Our work isn't done either. Just because we're voted and we have these two people elected, we still have work to do as well. And our follow-up question, I guess my question for you is, what do you think, what would you give as like a call to action to our listeners? Like, what's the one thing you would recommend that they just start doing in response to listening to the things that they might have learned in this episode?
Yeah. I would say it doesn't have to be so overwhelming. Like, you don't have to work in this political space to feel that you know or you're engaged. So there's a few things that you can get involved with. I would say your city council, county meetings, usually they have them online, or you can either watch online. I know due to COVID, you were able to do that. Or you can get the meeting notes and things like that online. So just once a month, just browse through it, see what was passed, see what they're doing in the budget. You can sign up for newsletters for your elected officials. So your county commissioners have newsletters. Your state representatives have newsletters. Like, go find out who your elected officials are. Yeah. You can look that up at the supervisor of elections office. You can find out who your state representatives are. You can find out who your state senators are. You can find out who they are, so that, number one, you can go hold them accountable, and you can just be in the know of what's happening in your districts.
And that's such low, and like, that's just it's really, so easy. Yeah. Once a month?
Just once a month. Well, don't do too much.
Yes.
So you don't feel like it's overwhelming. Get the newsletters, get the things that come to your email. One thing that you can do is a really cool feature. And I don't know if there's a way that I can send this out to your listeners, but during legislative session, bills that are filed, you can follow them or track them online. So say you're interested in this Stand Your Ground expansion bill that is going to come up in this session. You can track it, which means every time it gets moved in different committees or there's a vote on it and things like that, you'll get an alert to your email. So it's not like you have to sit, because you can watch the sessions, you can watch the debates, you can watch all of that online if you're just really interested, or you could just get alerts, seeing the highlights.
That's a good idea. And so you can send that to me, and I'll make sure it's on our Instagram and on our website for you guys to have access to that.
Yep. And then the other thing I would say is, I sometimes get overwhelmed and I feel like I got to solve all of the world's problems. And that's not the case.
Why is that a Black woman thing?
That is a Black woman thing.
And then we start on like problem solving one thing, and we're like, this whole thing is terrible. And we want to clean up the whole house.
There's so much more to be done, and I have to do it because it's on my shoulders. And that's so not the case. I would definitely say you don't have to be an expert in all of these different areas. There is so much work to be done. So if your thing is environmental justice, then get involved with the Sierra Club, get involved in local environmental groups and be involved in that, so you can stay in on the know of what's happening locally. If your thing is, education, go to the school board meetings, just be involved in these specific things that are if it's, a passion of yours, then you can just be involved and be in, just get the updates on what's happening in that particular area that interests you. One thing that I think is really cool just in my group of just friends in my political circles is that I don't feel like I have to be everywhere. We have a group meet. One person goes to the meetings and just reports back. And so if you have a tribe like that, do that, because life happens. We can't all go to the county commissioner meetings, but we send one. Hey, you report back what's happening. What do we need to know? Tell us what the next move is. What we need to sign a letter. We need to call. What we need to do. And so that kind of helps.
I think that's such good advice. And I know there's somebody listening that's like, I don't even know what I like. And I understand that. I understand from that perspective too. So you might need to take a step too and just sit with yourself one day for a couple of hours and reflect on you as a person and what you think is important to you. Some of us know what's important to us because we have personal connections to things, but you might not really know, what it is that, you are passionate about following up on or looking into. And it might be something as not grimy is not the right word, but like as simple as, man, I don't get paid enough. And if that's what comes out of your mouth in your reflection, there's a whole space for income wage that you could start researching on, or maybe it's like my rent's too damn high. All right, well, we could talk about housing. Yeah. I mean, that's an important local topic. So for some people that are coming to this from different stages in life, and you might be just, I don't know what I'm even into. You do need that quiet time to get to know you as a person and reflect on what are the things in my life that are most concerning, and then kind of drill down from there and then do the research on that. So I just want to give that. I think that's such a great tip because what you're saying, Kristen, is like, it's so overwhelming. You want to solve everything. Well, we're all doing this together. What do you want to focus on in the work?
Yep.
Love it.
Yep. And then my last thing I would just say is just get news alerts about what's happening. So like any of your local news or whatever you subscribe to, whether it's CNN, Fox, whatever your thing is, you can get alerts for like political news so you know what's happening. So it's not, you have to sit around and watch CNN for hours to be in the know.
And you're not going to like it at first, people. You're going to see the alert and you're like, what the hell is, I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep dropping D's and H words, but inside joke. But you might look at your phone like, what the heck is this? I don't care. Do not. It's just like working out. I have a weight problem. So, when I get to the gym, I don't feel like being there. I be complaining in the parking lot. But you know what makes the difference? I get in there and I start working out. It's the same thing with education. Your brain is a muscle. The first time you see the alert, you're going to open it and you're going to be like, this is Chinese. I don't know what these people are talking about. You're going to try and disassociate all these white people saying stuff that don't got nothing to do with me. I got to go to work. Don't let that immediate frustration detour you from, just try and read it. Just try. Just take a step and try. Even if you don't know what they're talking about, but you read the whole article. And guess what? Just like working out, it gets better after a while. But you have to start somewhere. And if you don't know, Kristen talks about she has a tribe. Find a tribe. Have somebody ask you stuff that you can ask questions to, if Google is too confusing,
And you can, so it is our duty to be involved because things that are happening, whether it's at these council meetings in Tallahassee, in Congress, they affect our everyday lives. Yeah. Like we are impacted by what is happening by the people that we get elected, whether you want to think about it or not.
We're dealing with stuff now based on decisions that were made years before us.
The way the roads are, if you have street lights, if your kid has certain food at school, down to how much you make at work, is all determined on what happens with our elected officials. So it is your right to be able to be engaged and be involved. It is also knowing who your elected officials are. You can go speak to them. We are their bosses. I mean, and it's a weird way to think about it, but they have to answer to their constituents. We put you in office. Oftentimes, we don't show up, so they don't feel like they owe us anything.
That's true.
But if we want certain things done, we need to show up, and we need to show up in numbers. But if you're confused about something, you can go and talk to your elected official and say, hey, why did you vote yes on this? Or why did you vote no on this? Or let's have a conversation. You can set up meetings with your city council, with your state representative and your state senators, and talk to them about it.
One thing I know I gave a shout out to John Q earlier. One thing I will say about this man, he will send our mayor an email in a second. And he like, y'all finna hear me. I know it's going to get stuck in an inbox somewhere, but y'all finna hear me today. And it's that kind of pressure, you know, they need to hear from us. And so maybe it's something as simple as that, but you don't know what to ask for if you don't know, right? So, to your point, they need to hear from us.
You need to be involved.
You have to be involved
to do it. Yep.
100% agree. Kristen, thank you for being
with us.
This was so great. Like, you just dropped some knowledge on the people. I just really appreciate you just being in this space because, and we should have more conversations like this if you don't mind coming back.
It's just so much. Yeah. I didn't know. I feel like I could sit on so many topics for so long.
We got to bring you back because I think, you know, this podcast is about health, wellness, and lifestyle. So it's like, obviously, our policies will affect all of those things, you know. And so I think this is an important cog in the wheel. So I'd love to have you back again. How can people learn about your organization, Equal Ground?
So Equal, you can find us online on our website, equal-ground.com. You can follow us on Facebook. People follow people on Facebook. You can like us on Facebook at Equal Ground Education. And then on Instagram, it's equal.ground on Instagram.
Okay, and this is not the only thing you do, though. And this is actually how we don't know each other through this. We know each other through something else that you do. Do you want to share what that is?
Sure. So in addition, I also run an organization called the Black History Project. So we are a nonprofit organization. We started back in 2015, and our main goal is just to engage and empower Black youth around our history. We know that Black history is not taught in schools, and there is just a lack, and there is such a need for our students to have an understanding of who they are, where they come from, why we do the things, why are we even protesting. What is the history behind protesting? And so we have a group of amazing community leaders that participate just to help provide this information to our students. And so, of course, just like all organizations in the world of a pandemic, we are pivoting and figuring out how do we, because we used to meet our students in person and have activities and events and things like that. But obviously we were unable to do that this year. And so we're looking at what does a virtual program look like for 2021. So I'm really excited about just the expansion and just the creativity we're able to do with that.
I'm excited too. Instagram for BHP is what?
Yes, it's just Black History Project.
Okay, great. So make sure y'all follow them on Instagram. And I just appreciate you guys per usual. Thank you for always listening and tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the letter B, woman, the letter B, well. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, we are available on all major podcasting platforms. So make sure you subscribe. For any more information about us, you can go to blackwomanbewell.com. And we just love you guys. Thank you for listening. And I can't wait to come back again and give you guys more information. Thanks again, Kristen, for joining us. Thanks again to the Average Joe, aka Charoy, for his mobile studio, and thanks again to John Q for his space. And just thank you to my tribe. All right, guys, we'll see you later.